Okay, so it's 3:15 now, so I think we should start. So good afternoon, everyone. So welcome, everybody. So welcome to the ideation study session. So my name is Han. I'm the session chair of this session, and I am an assistant professor in design creativity from the University of Liverpool. And today we have 4 wonderful papers in our session. So first of all, I'm going to introduce all 4 presenters, and then we are going to play the pre-recorded presentations for all 4 papers. And after that, we'll have a discussion. Okay. So the first paper, the title is Framework of an Ambidextrous Process of Idea Management, Supporting the Downstream Product Development Process. And the presenter is Thorsten Herrmann. Thorsten has been working as a research assistant at the Institute of Engineering Design and Industrial Design under the direction of Professor Hansgeorg Binz at the University of Stuttgart for 5 years. He is part of the working group Methodical Product Development and is particularly concerned with the methodical handling of radical innovations. And our second paper is Mitigating Design Fixation with Evolving Extended Reality Technology, an Emerging Opportunity. And the presenter is Xinhui Hu. So Xinhui is a PhD candidate from the Center of Ubiquitous Computing at the University of Oulu. Her research interest has been exploring how to use novel technologies to support the design process. And our third paper, the title is Do All Creative Stimuli Work the Same? Insights from a Workshop with Professionals. And the presenter is Harshika Singh. So Harshika is a PhD student at the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Politecnico di Milano in Italy. Along with her primary research, which is to understand design team dynamics by means of computational models, she also worked as a research fellow for European Union projects such as OIPEC, if I pronounce it correctly. So it stands for Open Innovation Platform for University Enterprise Collaborations from year 2017 to year 2019. So the paper she's going to talk about deals with the findings from one of the workshops which took place as a part of the OIPEC. And our last paper, the title is Exploring How Expert Behavioral Designers Ideate in the Behavioral Design Space. And the presenter is Camilla Nielsen. Camilla is a PhD student in behavioral design in the engineering system design section at the Department of Management Engineering at Technical University of Denmark. Okay, so now we are going to play the pre-recorded presentations for all 4 papers. And during the presentations and following the discussion, you can write down your questions and comments in the session chat. And also, when you're writing the questions in the session chat, please give a clear indication to which presentation or which presenter your question refers. You can also give a question like for all presenters. Okay. So Maria, we can play the videos now, I think.
Hello everybody, my name is Thorsten, and on behalf of my co-authors, I want to present our framework of an ambidextrous process of idea management, which should result into support of the downstream product development process. So please let me give you a quick motivation and introduction. You may have read by many researchers and industry experts who call for more radical and new innovations. Why is that? It is often claimed that companies will require these in order to be productive and innovative in the future. It used to be enough to be only innovative on an incremental level. Nowadays, radical innovations are more and more necessary. However, the management of innovation, especially in the early phases of the product development process, so to say, the idea management, has only changed to a limited extent despite this demand. I will in a few seconds present some evidence on that. Consequently, companies are approaching radical innovations with the same methods. Nevertheless, these traditional methods are often more suitable for incremental rather than radical innovations. However, we do not want either or. However, we want both radical and incremental. We claim for ambidexterity, so to say, a coexistence between radical and incremental innovation projects, which is necessary. And it is necessary to handle these with different methods. So the main problem this paper wanted to tackle is that ambidexterity is not considered in idea management. Based on the first research question, which deficits are apparent in known idea process models, we want to present a framework for an adapted and improved idea process model, which tackled the identified deficits and which improves the handling of radical ideas or radical innovations in the early phases. So we started with an analysis of 17 established process models from the 1980s, nearly up to now. And what we found out is that we can break down all these process models to 5 core steps, which are idea generation, idea capturing or definition, a loop process of idea evaluation and idea detailing, and of course, the idea selection, which selects the most promising ideas handed over to the product development process. So what are the deficits? As you can see here, there is no distinction between radical and incremental ideas, and there is no dual process. The key aspects focus also on the solution and not on the problem. So to say, there is no evaluation of problems, there's no generation of problems, and this seems very important, especially for radical innovations, or to be radical with innovations in the early phases of idea management. So starting from these 5 core steps of the idea management process, we developed our framework of an ambidextrous idea process model. So first, we changed just the wording on the 5 core process steps, so to say. So we have a solution orientation on the one hand side with the dark blue process part, and we added the problem orientation where we analyze problem ideas, we capture them, we evaluate them, and so on. And as you can see here, there's only one path so far, which is for exploitation. So we need another one for exploration, which seems nearly similar to the path for exploitation, of course, because the steps are more or less the same, but the methods used behind these steps are different. So we develop different methods supporting especially the process steps and the process of exploration on the top. And of course, we need the measurement of the novelty. So which idea goes within which part? This is also very important. We developed some support methods on that. And as you can see, we have to repeat that because the measurement or the novelty, the degree of novelty can change while the process is going on. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hello everyone, today we're glad to have the chance to present an emerging opportunity, which is to mitigate design fixation with the evolving extended reality technology. So what is design fixation? Design fixation is a long persisting problem that is featured by the adherence on existing ideas and the inability of generating new ones. While this phenomenon is not always negative, the encumbrance in ideation and creativity can be quite frustrating. Moreover, design fixation is hard to eliminate because it involves complex mental mechanisms. There are 3 subtypes of design fixation. The unconscious adherence is featured by blindly fixating on exposed ideas and reusable features in less optimal ways. In the case of conscious block, designers have realized their involuntary adherence but cannot overcome. Intentional resistance refers to the deliberate preference of previously successful method over new ideas, Concerns in risk and budget often play a role in this situation. So what leads to this problem? Sunk cost is an obvious factor. The unwillingness of wasting spent time and resources can prevent designers from switching ideas due to loss aversion. And the conflict of design mental process can be another reason. The operation of CAD tools are often counterintuitive for designers, which interrupts their natural design flow and limits their creativity. Humans' memories is stored in the web of neurons. However, when a neuron is recently activated, it becomes more accessible, which in turn further increases its chance to get reactivated. Such a closed-loop reinforcement can lead to overactivation of some neural pathways. Moreover, the interactive nature of the memories requires external stimulus for initiating knowledge retrieval process. Thus, monotonous stimuli can only activate a small scope of thoughts and hence lead to a narrow solution space. And this is why extended reality catches the attention of designers. Extended reality is the fusion of virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. These three branches of XR have different levels of immersion and virtuality, but collectively they are bringing new features and new opportunities. For example, it provides a flexible and intuitive operation by engaging body movement, which is a natural way for expressing ideas. It also minimizes the needs for tutorial. The easy recovery of work progress relieves the mental burden of wasting previous efforts. Moreover, XR has a unique benefit in engaging embodied cognition due to the inclusion of body movement. This will greatly enrich the perceptual stimuli. Furthermore, XR have already provided rich type of stimuli, especially by promoting multi-sensory interaction and 3D spatial cognition. This will inspire more diverse ideas. The great extendability of XR also facilitates more possibilities. For example, it can integrate more advanced techniques and features such as gravity and temperature. But on the other hand, it can also be a fantasy simulator, in which the designers can build scenarios that are never possible in the real world and free their imagination. Last but not least, by replicating the environment around the users, XR will allow designers to experience the user's world and better empathize with them. This will help them to detect the latent needs and reduce the stereotype of the users. And this is how XR mitigates design fixation. With design fixation due to sunk cost, the intuitive operation can reduce the frustration, while the easy recovery can relieve the worries of wasting effort. To the conflict in the design mental process, the natural expression of ideas with body movement can smooth the design flow, while it can also reduce the competition in mental resources, especially in the attention and decision-making aspect. The diverse stimuli can activate a wide range of brain regions, and hence help to avoid overactivation of neural pathways. Finally, engaging embodied cognition and multisensory interaction, the rich stimuli can lead designers to a broader solution space. The change of perspective can also provide them a new way to see the world. As a conclusion, in this presentation, we elaborated on the notion of design fixation and identified the underlying mechanisms. We also further explored the new features and opportunities brought by XR and proposed methods for mitigating design fixation with XR. Thank you very much for listening. Do you have any questions?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harshika Singh, and I'm one of the authors of Do All Creative Stimuli Work the Same? Insights from the Workshop with the Professionals. Among many factors that exist, the kind of creative stimuli used during idea generation affects ideation activity and therefore the final design outcome. It is often taken for granted that simulation helps in creative thinking, but it is still unclear if all simulation tools produce similar effects on creativity and how effective they are when used with non-trained designers. Therefore, the purpose of the study is not to check whether stimuli are effective to produce creative outcomes, but how much they are helpful in expanding the exploration of the design space when compared to each other. This was done through a workshop that was organized within EU's Erasmus Plus project called OEPEC, which stands for Open Innovation Platform for University Enterprise Collaboration, whose main objective was to bring open innovation in small and medium enterprises. We wanted to explore the performance of the biological strategies, patents, scamper, trace model of contradiction, and system thinking according to the both problem solution and abstract concrete dimension. These stimuli were characterized according to the four-quadrant diagram as shown in the figure below. The natural sources of inspiration, like biological strategies and patents, were classified as concrete stimuli. Scamper, trace model of contradiction, and trace system thinking were considered as abstract stimuli. In the case of problem-focused stimuli, trace contradiction and system thinking were considered as they help in redefining the design problem. Stimuli such as scamper, biological strategies, and patents were considered solution-based due to their nature of focusing designers' attention to generate solution rather than reframing the problem. The workshop had 5 groups of 7 to 8 people with a facilitator. The participants were from different companies from all over Europe, Russia, and China. The experiment was organized into 2 rounds. The first one was without any stimulation tools. The idea exchange was like in any typical brainstorming session. The second round was carried out with the administration of creative stimuli. The proposed solutions were coded according to the 4 dimensions that characterize the design space. The dimensions were as follows. The first one is the space dimension that captures the structural level details of the solution. The second captures solution working time frame. The third is the strategy that the solution exploits to address the problem. And the last one is the field of interaction, which describes the working principle of the solution. These 4 levels were further subcoded to capture the details of the solution. Then, to answer the research question, it was necessary to observe how much the distribution of ideas generated during the second stage of the workshop differs from the ones generated during the first stage. The variance of the difference between the codes measured in the 2 stages estimates the effectiveness of the stimuli in redirecting the thinking process of co-designers, where higher variance is for higher effectiveness. In general, it was found that stimuli-driven generated ideas resulted more diverse than intuitively generated ones. We also found that solution-based and concrete stimuli are more effective when used by non-trained professionals. To conclude, the paper provided clarity about the relationship between stimuli type and non-trained designers. It focused on seeing how capable are different stimuli to redirect the idea generation process towards unexplored areas of design space. We confirmed that stimuli characterized into different aspects produce different results on exploration of design space. Besides providing a new approach to characterize design space into 4 new dimensions to capture idea generation, we also showed that stimuli help in generating diverse solutions than typical brainstorming. Usually, novelty and variety goes with abstraction, while here with professionals, concrete stimuli work better. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Hi, my name is Camilla, and today we're talking about a behavioral design study on ideation. But first, what is behavioral design and why is it exciting? So at its core, behavioral design is a multi-theory approach focusing on understanding behavioral patterns to design behavioral effects. In doing so, behavioral designers design interventions. These are tangible, intangible artifacts facilitating redirection of behavior. But zooming out, a behavioral mindset is beneficial in any activity involving human interaction. So my advice to you is that anything you do, as long as it involves people, considering aspects of human psychology. But back to the scope of this paper, what we want to do is to add to the emerging field of behavioral design. We want to initially investigate exploration of the behavioral design space. And in order to do so, we need to consider what the behavioral design space is. The behavioral design space is partially described across multiple works. And we build on existing literature on behavior and behavior change, but we also discuss these in relation to diverse areas of more traditional design. And from this, we propose a set of 6 behavioral design parameters. These include cognition, ability, motivation, timing, social and physical context. These all have 2 to 3 corresponding traits, and these are described further in the paper. In the study, we observed and recorded 2 diverse ideation sessions in a behavioral design agency. We transcribed all ideas ideated by the designers. We coded them on the 6 design parameters, we grouped them into concepts, and assessed these for variation of behavioral parameters. In doing so, we arrive at 3 key takeaways. The first one is that the 6 behavioral parameters show potential to be applicable for behavioral design work across diverse intervention application areas. Next up is identification of 4 ideation patterns for designers to be aware of. These include holding, shifting, pairing, and mixing. And here, notably, the first one, holding, is seeing a low variation of exploration of, in this case, behavioral design parameters, and shifting, pairing, and mixing are 3 different ways of having a higher variety of these. And last and maybe most interesting is that the designers observed had a tendency towards holding behavioral parameters across all 6 behavioral design parameters, except from physical context. And this says something about that the more abstract behavioral parameters might be underexplored if the behavioral design space is not actively explored. So this was it for now. Thank you all for watching.
Okay, so thank you all for the wonderful presentations. I think all the 4 papers are very good, actually, and they have talked about ideation from different perspectives. So maybe let's move to the discussion part. So there are 1 questions already in the session chat from Yuri. And also, if other audience want to ask more questions, just please write them down in the session chat. And if you want to ask questions via a video or audio sharing, we can also do so. Just request and we will give you the right to do that. Okay, so the first question from Yuri is for Thorsten. So Yuri says, as far as I understand, your starting point is lack of method for radical innovation or design. So I got it right. I totally agree with your stance. Why does it take place? Too little information at the beginning of the design process? Too risky? Does it depend on people or designers' creativity? Okay, so Thorsten, so what's your response for this question? So Thorsten, I think you are muted. So yeah, I think we cannot hear you. No, I cannot hear you. Okay. Maybe refresh the page. So Maria, do you have any advice?
Okay, then refresh your page, please. So we have to wait just a second for him to reload the page.
Okay. So just wait for 1 or 2 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Sorry. So thank you, Juri, for your question. You really hit the point. I mean, ideas are always in a competition, answering the question, which is the most successful one. So sometimes, or quite often, the level of information is the point and the problem. And we have to describe the ideas on in the exact level of detailed information so that you can evaluate the ideas, which are on the one hand incremental and on the one hand radical. So if they are not on the same information level, it is really, really difficult to evaluate them on a good way. So we also found out that designers have to be supported by methods to bring radical ideas to such a, let's say, information level that they are quite equal, that you can quite evaluate them on an equal level. So yes, I agree with you. Too risky is the point, but what does too risky actually mean? Very often it is a lack of information. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Thorsten. We've got another question for you from Camilla. So Camilla says, thank you for the inspiring presentation. Mm-hmm. So how do you define problem ideas? Is it your own terminology or is it related to problem framing?
Mm-hmm. Well, we describe it as kind of a need or a problem of a customer or a user, let's say, like this. So if we have a solution idea on the one hand side, this is a solution for a problem, but the problem idea is the very beginning of the idea process or the idea management, just the need for having a new solution.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So for Xinhui, I think we got a question for you from Camilla as well. So Camilla says, thank you for a nice presentation. Would extended reality XR ideation tool be mainly for designers, or do you think co-creation and stakeholder involvement would benefit from those tools as well?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
I think okay, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Camilla. This is a great question. Yes, the extended reality as an ideation tool, I think it would be generally benefit to all the stakeholders that will involve in the design process, not limited to the designers. Currently, the practice of using XR technologies in the design process is mainly for ideation, which is to avoid the cognitive pitfalls, and for visualization, which have a better presentation of the ideas. And of course, the collaboration and knowledge synchronize is an important part. So yes, I think you are right. The co-creation and the stakeholder involvement will be a great benefit of XR.
Okay, thank you, Xinhui. Okay, so Yuri got another question for you. So because he has some technical problems during your presentation, so he's wondering what's the main point, in your view, that enables XR to limit fixation?
Yeah, thank you, Yuri. This is a great question. I think the main point is the XR help people to engage a different set of cooperation, and so they are recruiting a different set of cognitive and behavioral mechanisms. So these different set of mechanisms allow people to avoid some existing pitfalls that are hard to eliminate with the previous design method. So this is like, in brief, I think being able to recruit more diverse cognitive behavioral mechanism is the key for XR to limit the fixation.
Okay, thank you. So you got another question from Jordan. So how are the XR models developed? Do they need to be generated by design team, or are automated AI method involved?
Thank you, Jordan. This is a great question. I think the XR models are mostly developed by a multidisciplinary team. So currently, the existing products that are adopting XR as a design supporting ideation tool are mostly by the collaboration between designers and the computer science researchers. So the automated and AI methods will and must evolve, like for it to fully function, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. So you got another question from Niccolo.
Thank you.
So he's wondering, what kind of contents would you like to show in XR to limit fixation?
Yeah, thank you. So may I ask, like, so what do you mean by the content? Sorry.
So yeah. So Niccolo, can you explain it a little bit more in detail? What do you mean by content? So he said AR and VR rely on images shown, superimposed, stuff like that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the collaboration. So like majorly when we propose this idea, we are envisioning that using a fully immersive, like basically it's like the fully immersive VR environment, or the mix of like the reality and virtual with AR and MR. So in this case, we are mostly focusing on the possibility that we are going to engage the body movement and other more intuitive cognitive and behavioral mechanisms that will allow us to focus on the design ideation itself rather than the technical issue. So this is like our focus. Did I answer the right question?
Yes. So okay. So you got a lot of questions, so we just move on to the next presenter. Okay. So we got a question for Harshika from Camilla again. Thank you so much, Camilla, for the questions. So she said, thank you for your interesting presentation. So did you conduct a study on other design tasks? Would you expect the same positive or no impact result of stimuli on design tasks, perhaps on not so technical design tasks?
Okay, thank you for the question. No, we haven't compared similar kind of studies by varying different types of design tasks in terms of complexity, in terms of nature of the design task. This was just one single study, but if we are given the opportunity, we would definitely like to try with different nature of the design task to see whether we get the same result. The task which we used here, and the one which we presented in the paper, was very open-ended. So, and it was designed such that it was, in my opinion, it was not very technical, because it was related to a problem which is very common, and it was chosen such that everybody in the team could relate it. So that was the whole thing. And that was the thing that we decided to choose such design task, which could be open and everybody could relate to it. But yes, we would like to conduct different studies to see, like, what happens if you make a design task too complicated or too complex or too easy or too well known or too very domain specific. What are the changes, and whether the same result to different kinds of design tasks. Thank you.
Okay, Thank you. Yeah. So I have a question for you. So when you mentioned that concrete stimuli are better or effective for sorry. Okay. So for the experts. So what do you mean by like better or effective?
But better effective, we mean in changing or in expanding the view of the participants to a different domain of the design space. So like we showed in the presentation, we had 4 different domains in which we have divided the design space. So structural level, based on the time, based on functionality, and based on the strategies used behind the solutions. So how effective are these stimuli in diverging one's idea, which was, let's say, was focused on structural level to a different time space, to a different time frame. So what is the dispersion, or what is the variation? So the amount of variation, we mean effectiveness in this case.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have some questions for Camilla. So Camilla has asked a lot of questions, and I have a few questions for you. So in your paper, you have identified 4 ideation patterns, like holding, shifting, pairing, and mixing. So is it possible there are like more, not just these 4? Are there possible there are like more patterns?
Yes, and thank you for the question. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Yes, I think it's possible that there are more ideation patterns. Those were the 4 main that we identified in our case study here. And I think especially since the holding was such greatly represented compared to the other 3s, indicate that that would probably be something that you would see across other studies as well if you studied it again. And also notably, the 4th one, mixing, is a combination of the first 3. So in that sense, you could argue whether that fits on the same level as the first 3 of them. And also it's very rarely shown in smaller concepts with smaller ideas in a concept. So there's definitely some bias there to consider.
So Niccolo has another questions for you. So he's very interested in understanding about the 4 ideation patterns. So he's wondering, can you give us like more details about the 4 patterns?
Yes. So the first one, holding, is similar to having a high fixation. And in this case, it's across the 6 behavioral design parameters, but it would be the same if you measured on any other creative metrics. So within the concept, you use the same, let's say, for example, you only have parts or not products or systems. So you only utilize like one specific trait of a parameter. So that would be holding. And shifting is where you jump from one to another, either from each idea, between each idea, or every other idea. So you could go from a part to then a product to a part to a system way of like representing your idea. Let me remember which one mixing is a mix of the 3 others, and pairing is the one that I forgot. Pairing is where you have 2 or more ideas that are within the same. So let's say 2 parts, and then suddenly you have two products or 2 systems. So they come in like chunks of following the same line of thought. let's call it a small fixation within a concept.
Okay, thank you very much, Camilla. Can I ask a little, elaborate a little bit further? So, do you think, can we say which pattern is better, or which pattern can lead to ideas that are more creative? Can we say something like that, or not? Let's say work both equally, something like that. I'm not sure.
I think one thing is that the best practice for now is aiming for a higher variance. So being aware that in this case, I observed practitioners who did free, open ideation, so just sitting and building on each other's ideas. They typically followed the same line of thinking, causing this holding. So there's a lot of fixation and not a lot of variance, meaning that some of the parameters that we assessed were nearly ignored, not looked into at all. And being aware that you ignore things can enable you to explore them in a better way. So I would definitely say that the three that are to do with the variance are in theory better than holding, but I cannot say between the three that have the higher variance which one would be more preferable than others. That would need further study.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so currently we have no questions from the audience, but probably I just give all the presenters, all the panelists a general question, as we are all working, or you are all working on ideations. So what do you think is the most important stage or most important step in idea generation? So anyone want to start first? The most important part in idea generation, in your opinion? Yeah. Anyone want to lead? Or should we, yeah. Thorsten, do you want to start? As you have more experience, I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, to stick back to Camilla's question at the beginning, problem idea, I would answer like it's the best thing to know your problem and to analyze your problem in the best way.
Okay.
That would be my answer.
Other panelists? Harshika, do you think anything about stimuli? What do you think is more important?
I was thinking in the same
stimuli
lines.
Important than problem?
Yes, I was also thinking in the similar lines, and I still think that before generating any ideas, it's important to know your problem. So something which would any stimuli that could help you in understanding the problem better, or understanding reframing the problem, or breaking the problem into smaller chunks would be one of the most essential steps for idea generation.
Thank you. So Xinhui, what's your thought on this?
It's
Do you think hardware can help? No.
Yeah. So my answer is similar. Is to define the right problem to solve. Yeah, because to us it's very common for us to think that without defining the right problem to solve, further elaboration may not be very meaningful if we choose the wrong way to go.
Thank you. So, Camilla, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the three others. I think maybe one difference is, since I work with behavior, a typical problem is that you design on what you think is a behavioral problem, but really you didn't identify the root cause of that problem. So in this problem reframing, really challenging the way you think about this problem and trying to come up with new ways to don't just stick with your first impression of what this problem is, but really take the time to explore.
I see. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have a further question for all of you. So as we are doing idea generation, so Thorsten is working on the process, Harshika is working on STIMULI. Xinhui is working on the using XR technologies. Camilla is working on behavioral design space. So we all are working on something related to idea generation. So how do we measure the success of idea generation? What are the indications that you think your method, your process, your stimuli, or your tools has worked fine, has successfully supported designers in idea generation? So anyone want to go first for this question? I know Harshika has already touched a little bit about what her means about effective, right? What she means better in her too. So what are the three panelists think? So okay, Xinhui.
Alex, for my current line of work, I think the novelty and the diversity of the idea is definitely important, because with my current topic, like the fixation on existing idea is a problem to solve. So in this case, whether we can see a more diverse solution space and less simple, like repetitive of the existing ideas, and of course, like the novelty of the generated ideas will be like important indicators in my case.
Okay. How about others? What do you think?
Well, if I break it down to the process, I would say the output of the process is, of course, a successful idea, or let's say, or you have to answer what is the idea? Is it for a new product? So the key performer indicator is a better product for solve problems or solve needs of maybe customers or stakeholders. So for me, it's the output at the end of the whatever process, if it is the idea management process or if it is the design process altogether. So.
Okay, so Camilla, what do you think?
I think
design.
Yeah, I think in my case for behavioral design, the trickiest part is to shift from this traditional way of designing a product, a tangible or intangible, and to put that aside for a moment and then design the behavioral effect. And it means a shift in mindset, which is why I work with these parameters. But I think linking to what Thorsten is doing, I think his work is a really good representation of like this overall generic process, where what I am doing is touching upon a specific mindset, which would come in a specific way of 8 in this problem solution space.
Okay, good. Thank you all. So let's see. So have no questions from the audience yet. So I'll just give you another question. So actually, I got inspired from Thorsten's paper. So I read Thorsten's paper. So in his paper, so the expert said the process is too complex. Okay, and also I read a few papers a while ago. Basically, people said that although we have a lot of tools, methods, or maybe equipment to help designers in idea generation, but many designers think there are too many steps to use them. They think it might be like time consuming, so they don't use it. They abandon this method, right? So they abandon methods and they just do like simple brainstorming. So what should we solve this? So for Thorsten, I think you have experiences. So what do you think? So, expert in your case study said it's too complex, your process. So how are you going to implement your process? How do you convince the expert?
Yeah. Well, as Camilla mentioned, the process model is just a generic model. So we tested the model or the process model in very different companies, actually, in big companies, also in small companies. And the statement of course, came out of a small company. So maybe you use that process, which seems a little bit complex, not in that holistic way, but you slice it into pieces which you can use best. So that's maybe what Camilla wanted to say 2 minutes ago, because the process in itself, the holistic one, it's too difficult. But if you can only put or use one piece for bringing or for helping or supporting you in idea generation, that would be one first step. And as I mentioned, we tested it in many different companies, so we not always used the whole holistic process. And of course, it's a human thing, because at the beginning, new methods, new processes seem like causing you time, or they will you have to spend more time for using it. But especially if you are experienced with the methods and the process, it helps you at the end to generate more ideas, or to bring ideas through the process and to a successful level.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Thank
it's
you.
more experience thing, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree. Yeah. So maybe for Xinhui, so you are using like a little bit different from others. You're using hardware like XR technologies. So how can you convince designers to use technologies? So maybe I said, oh, I don't have any equipment, so I don't want to use it. Or how do you convince designers to use it?
Yeah, like for me, the answer maybe just let them to try, because like one of the main arguments for this study is that the XR technology basically allow the designer to recruit their natural body movement for express the ideas. So basically, if they tried and find like ideating in this like environment with XR is like very simple and very intuitive. It's just like basically the same, like just using your hand to draw anything in the air, just with a maybe joystick. Maybe after they try, they will feel, oh, this is not so different from the natural expression of their ideas, and maybe they would like to try this technology.
Okay, yeah, good. Thank you. So for Harshika, so you did a workshop using STIMULI. So what did the professional says? Do they think they will still use like STIMULI in their future works or not? What's their response to the STIMULI? What's their feeling?
In the end, we did collected some feedbacks, and though we didn't collect any results related to whether they will use it in the future or not, we just collected it about their experience about the workshop, and they seem to have enjoyed it. They said they have never done something like this before, and this definitely using these tools definitely help them in thinking in ways they were not thinking before. So in that case, we got a positive response. But like we were discussing a few moments back, that it's really difficult due to the nature of time, due to resources, that these tools are really implemented in the company or with professionals. So answering back to your question, I don't know if they are still using it or they will use it.
Okay, thank you. So for Camilla, I know your research is a little bit, for me, it's quite new, so behavioral design. So from your point of view, so what do you say about this?
I think it's a really good question, and it needs a change of mindset to accept this. Being fast in a design process is not necessarily good, and often you can trace back whenever a project is failing to the problem framing or the choice of idea or concepts that you went with, and even though we know that, it's still difficult for practitioners to buy into this. Let's spend more time doing this. I think especially for behavior, it is crucial. It's really key to know the problem and really ideate on how this problem can be solved and how this problem can be understood. And in that sense, it's a little bit different. You need to allocate the time. I have worked a lot with consultancies, and it's always a problem that clients ask them to very fast identify what the problem is and very fast come up with a solution. And the consultancies need to go back to the clients and say, okay, we need to spend 90% of the budget just on understanding the problem and exploring the solution space, which the clients are not super fond of. But hopefully it's part of this change in mindset.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So just finally, I just would like to ask all the presenters to conclude the next step of the research they just presented. So what are you going to do next for the research you just presented? Maybe we just go with the presentation sequence. Maybe Thorsten first. So what are you going to do next?
Yeah. Well, this was the framework of my research, and we stepped into every process step. We developed methods for that, and what we are now working on is kind of a web application to help you out while answering the question which method is in which process step the most helpful one. So there's a kind of a logic behind that. So we are working on so to say, method choosing right now.
Okay, thank you. So Xinhui, so what are you going to do next for your XR technology?
Yeah, thank you. So like our next step is to dive into each of the aspects of the benefits that XR will bring to ideation process. So we are going to examine each of its aspects, like how to better utilize the convenient operation, or how to utilize the opportunity of using VR as an episode machine. We are going to dive into each section and try to get a better understanding of how exactly can we support the ideation process with these technologies.
Okay, thank you. So Harshika, so what's your plan?
First of all, I think we would like to do similar study, but with a larger data set, so that we can really claim something concrete. Secondly, we would like to see like why these different stimuli produce effects on different effects on exploration of design space, like why biological strategies only helped at the structural level, why patents helped at behavioral level, why these changes are occurring. So we would like to dig deeper. And then this is a really far-fetched plan. We would like to see, like, at cognitive level, why these stimuli are producing different effects on ways we are thinking.
Okay, thank you. So Camilla, so what are you going to do next then?
I am focusing on the 6 parameters for a suggested way to understand the behavioral design space. So I'm working on putting it together in a framework and really describing in detail how it combines the theory from psychology on how to understand behavior and behavior change, but also intersect with how we design things from a more classical design perspective, and evaluating that, including 3 additional cases, so I have a larger data set.
Okay, thank you. And I think we are just on time. So I would like to call an end of the session, and thank you all for coming. Thank you, Thorsten, Xinhui, Harshika, Camilla for the wonderful presentation, and thank you, Maria, for helping us. Okay, thank you all, and have a nice day. Okay, so see you during the other session.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Bye, everyone.